Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, politicians flounder about in response to control viral transmissions of COVID-19. New England Journal of Medicine has shocking report on the effectiveness of extreme COVID-19 lockdowns. 2 county council members want to end MCPS school resource officer program. And 70% of Republicans do not believe the election was free and fair, while 62% of Americans think it's time to be over. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by the Dean of Democratic Politics, Sam Statland, Secretary of the Maryland Republican Central Committee, Mark Uncapher, former Membership Director of the Maryland GOP, Phil Bell, and the former Mayor of Rockville, Susan Hoffmann. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. As the number of positive COVID-19 cases continue to rise, politicians flounder about in response to control the viral transmissions with highly unpopular non-pharmaceutical interventions. Susan, after 8 months of being hectored and harangued about the need to wear masks and to practice social distancing, the predicted second wave of the COVID-19 came in with a bang. It's increasing locally and nationally. Governor Hogan, in frustration last week, said that Marylanders needed to wear the damn masks. Emphasis, exclamation point. Is the answer to controlling the spread of the disease that easy? Is that all we really have to do?
Casey, in a word, yes, but I won't stop there. If you can remember Robert Redfield, Dr. Redfield, the head of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, about a month or so ago said that that was the single most important thing that anyone could do until we have a vaccine, is to wear a mask. And then Michael Osterholm from the University of Minnesota uses the expression, we shouldn't be swapping air. And that is another way to prevent that from happening. So with the exception of not ever going outside, yes, wearing a mask is the single most important thing one can do and keeps you from swapping air.
Well, if that's the case, I don't see anybody not wearing a mask in public. Then why are we having this increase in infections? I don't know if that's really going to be the solution, the be all and end all. And Sam, the New England Journal of Medicine has reported that lockdowns and quarantines did nothing to stop the spread of the virus. So why do we now have the county executive and at least 2 council members advocating a month-long stay-at-home order? It's insane.
Well, Casey, even though there was one report in the Lancet and the Medical Journal, there were 72 other reports that said the best thing to do to limit the spread of the virus is to wear a mask, maintain social distancing, confine yourself to small groups, et cetera, which is exactly what Governor Hogan did. In his latest press release, he has absolutely cut us down, and we're becoming more restricted.
You're not answering the question about Mark Elrich.
Well, Mark is following along with the 72 reports we have, what Governor Hogan is saying, what Dr. Gales is saying, and to keep us safe, he's asking people to wear a mask, maintain social distancing, watch your social activities over Thanksgiving, keep it refined to your bubble group.
Sam, I'm going to repeat myself. Will Jawando and Hans Reimer want to have a month-long lockdown? Why is that the answer?
Because, Casey, in the extreme, that goes the best way to keep us safe. Look at New York City. They just closed the school system down. Other states and jurisdictions have closed the school system down. 19 states only do not have restrictions. So if that's what it takes to keep us safe, for a 90-day period till we get a vaccine, I think we should do that for our own safety, the safety of our loved ones, and the safety of our friends and neighbors.
Sam, we're
Casey, can I?
social distancing. Mark, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, I get the aspiration that somehow there's this magic bullet before the vaccine comes in. The problem is that we've now got a 6-month experience in which, yes, I get that, you know, the distancing and the masks are slowing it, but the notion that a complete shutdown will somehow be that much more effective, the evidence isn't there for that.
Not everybody,
Casey,
not
this
everybody
entire
supports
discussion,
a shutdown.
the
Not
entire
everybody
discussion,
supports that.
Hold on.
our discussion speaks to the total bankruptcy of our public health, so-called public health professionals and the advice they've provided. Number one, if masks really worked, if they were effective, then you would have seen a dramatic decline in the number of cases and sustained decline at low paces. Instead, what did we get? We got so-called public health professionals all over the country saying, well, maybe it's college kids that are causing the problem. Maybe it's people getting together in their homes causing a problem. You've got them in California getting together with Gavin Newsom, and I guess it doesn't cause a problem then if it's them. But by the way, it wasn't a problem when riots took place. You know, the virus couldn't be transmitted through riots as long as they were arguing for Black Lives Marxists. Now, that shows how wrong they have been, how utterly incompetent they are, and why there absolutely should not be a lockdown or mask mandate or any more of these so-called interventions. It's unacceptable.
The president's office today, the commission that he's established, went on the air today and said to people, wear masks. And
They
do
could be
everything
wrong
you
too. They're
social-
wrong.
Your
Incorrect.
That's your party, Phil, that is saying wear masks, social distance, and we will reduce the virus spread. Look at us.
We've done that. We've done that, and it hasn't worked.
Biden-
The minute-
Here's
so
11.
can I just
We're
jump
living
in,
the stuff.
please?
Hold on. I want to get a question in for Susan. I got a quick question for you. Today was announced that there was a 3,000 person soccer tournament up in Germantown that's being canceled because last week at a soccer tournament that occurred, one player came down with COVID-19, and now they're canceling the entire tournament. Does that seem fair? And really, does it really make sense since it's an outdoor activity?
Well, I think that obviously it's a great disappointment, and younger people are, tend to be a little less likely to fall victim. But according to Dr. Fauci, 40 to 45% of all people with COVID-19 are asymptomatic. So there are, possibilities that there are more than just the one team member who has the disease, and
But they're not even playing.
running around. Well, wait a minute. When they're running around on the field, they are not wearing a mask, and so they can, infect each other. So I believe in safe rather than sorry, so they can live to play another day.
Susan, you bring up an interesting point about asymptomatic spread. It should be noted that asymptomatic spread was based on one person interviewing one person who claimed to be asymptomatic, and it was later turned out she in fact had symptoms. So that
I'm
should
sorry,
undermine
Phil,
the
but
entire
no,
basis
there-
of the
I
law.
want to interrupt.
There's
you, Phil.
science throughout that shows that people are
That's
asymptomatic
science.
and they
That's
test positive.
Thank you.
It's simply not true.
Sorry for interrupting, but I have a serious question that I want to ask because it deals with our civil liberties. And Mark, the former papal nuncio to the United States, Archbishop Carlo Maria Vignano, writes that this country is in the midst of a health dictatorship, which is seeking to limit our individual freedoms, particularly in the area of religious freedoms. And they point to the fact that in Nevada, they allow the casinos to operate, but the churches to remain closed.
And here in Maryland as well. I think there's a certain amount of hypocrisy about this, that comparable activities, some are deemed as being essential and others are not. Our places of worship are very capable of doing the necessary social distancing, and anybody who's been in a lot of sanctuaries know many of them have a lot of room. I think there ought to be a lot more latitude to be able to continue services. Again, it's possible to do it with proper controls and precautions.
Well, I'm telling you, I'm personally concerned because I believe this country was founded on the basis of liberty and personal freedom. And I doubt that the founders who were establishing our country would look back and think that government should have the right to limit our free speech and our free assembly of religion. And Phil, Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito in a speech echoed these sentiments last week, where he said that freedom of speech is becoming a second-tier constitutional right. And the country that we have been founded on, are we losing our bearings as a nation?
Yeah, we absolutely are. And one of the things that I always like to think back in the past when we talked about freedom of speech would be how the Black attorneys would go out and defend Klansmen. And they would say, look, I disagree with what that Klansman says, and he would probably not like me very much, but he deserves the opportunity to speak, even to be able to say the things that are unpopular. But now today, it is not only do we have government efforts to do that, but just in general to say, well, you know what, if you're not going to follow the mainstream, your speech is unacceptable, it's wrong, and you should be condemned for it. I mean, you even had a writer for the Washington Post say that anyone who continued to support President Trump should be put on a blacklist, Jennifer Rubin. And to think that's the way our society is going.
I think I'd like to keep it to the discussion on COVID. The idea that you can have different ideas and attitudes about the response to COVID, as we've just been debating, and have those censored is very frightening. We got to go on to our next topic, which is the council members Hans Reamer and Will Jawando have proposed in the School Resource Officer Program in MCPS schools that allows police officers, to be stationed in its buildings. Susan, public schools, particularly high schools, have often been incidents of crime, and for example, like the rape and sodomy that occurred at Damascus High School a year and a half ago, or maybe it was 2 years. It was 2 years ago. Now, as a former mayor, do you support the effort to end the school resource program?
I think that the school resource program is popular and well regarded. I also don't think that council members Reamer and Jawando have the votes right now. But let me also point out that one of the statement, the lead up that you just gave when you say high schools are often the site of crime, I think often is not accurate. I think that crime does exist, sometimes in school and sometimes on school grounds, but I think saying that it is often the location is not accurate. As far as what happened at Damascus, which was horrendous and disgusting, was with the knowledge of some of the adults, the coaches and so forth, and did happen in after hours. So I'm not even sure that the school.
I understand that, but let's talk about the schools themselves and whether or not the schools need the resource program.
Well, what I'm saying is that I think the program is well thought through, and I think most resource officers are appreciated, and I don't know that there's much abuse. Whether or not all of the money could, some of the money could be taken and put with nurse programs, because high schools don't have as many nurses, or public schools generally, maybe there's a better way to break that money up, take some of that money for other purposes. But I don't.
Let me work Phil in here. Phil, proponents say that the SRO program profiles Black and Latino students, and that the money would be better spent on mental health services. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I disagree. I obviously was a Black student. I went to high school. We had school resource officers there. They were very helpful, and there you didn't have to worry about being suspected or approached in a negative way unless you'd done something wrong. So it's simple as that. Conduct yourself like a normal student, you will have no problem.
I think we really need to acknowledge the fact that in some of our high schools, and I think it's not true of all of them, but some of our high schools in Montgomery County, we've got a real gang problem. We've got MS-13. And one of the preconditions for education has to be to have students feel safe. And if the officers can help in that process, that contributes to the students and also to the education as well.
Well, I think that's what they're doing there in the first place.
Right, absolutely.
Showing wisdom, the county council has decided that they're not going to do anything until they got the report from Dr. Smith. And Dr. Smith, superintendent of schools, ordered a study to see where these resources are best put. And I'm glad everybody on the council, with the exception of Joando and Reamer, I guess, are going along with this wisdom. And we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Sam. Well, thank you, panel, on the great topic. When we come back from this short break, is it possible for the nation to heal after 4 years of virtual hand-to-hand combat between the two political parties? Stay tuned. And welcome back. 2 weeks after one of the most divisive elections in history, the count goes on. As Democrats in the mainstream media declare former Vice President Joe Biden the winner, and 62% of Americans think that the election has been decided, 70% of Republicans believe that the election was stolen. Susan, what are your observations?
Well, first of all, I'm going to have to quibble with your numbers. The Reuters Ipsos poll says that 52% of Republicans think it was stolen, not 70, and 61% in the Monmouth poll. So it's really important. And that 61% is not that they think it's stolen, but that they're not at all confident.
Susan, the polls were all wrong going up to the election. So let's not hang our hat on the strength of polls.
Okay, well, I just think it's important to be accurate on numbers. All I can tell you is that all of the law firms that were involved in the early part of these cases that were being brought, all of them have abandoned Mr. Trump. And now he has the dream team legal mind of Rudy Giuliani, who's representing him in the at the highest level, shall we say, and perhaps the level that he deserves. Joe Biden has been gracious despite the hurdles that have been placed in his way. The transition team has been working hard. Joe and Kamala are holding roundtable meetings, Zoom meetings with experts, and trying to move forward despite the GSA head who is refusing to ascertain the result. As more people get fired, more experts.
Susan, I have one question for you.
Transition team.
Has the Electoral College voted yet?
No, they're not
They
scheduled
have not.
until December.
Until the Electoral College has voted, there is no presidential decision. So you can
Each state certifies. Yeah.
You can cite your facts, you can cite the polls, but not a single Secretary of State has certified an election. And the
No, that's not true. No.
The electors
Virginia was, excuse me, Virginia was certified yesterday.
Okay, my mistake.
Different states have certified. The Electoral College has not voted.
Right.
And
until they do, there is no change in the administration.
I didn't say the administration has changed. And the numbers that I'm citing are in just to correct the numbers you're saying. It's not 70% of Republicans think it.
Mark, I want to go to you.
More like half the Republicans.
Thank you, Susan. Mark,
That's
the
a big
country's been
difference,
plagued for the
isn't it?
past 20 years by questionable elections and results. And isn't it the best interest of the country to get a full and fair recount of these contested elections?
Well, we have a legal process and it's being followed. And we've had this in the past. We've got, frankly, a long history in this country of having elections, none under Sam's watch when he was at the Board of Elections. But I think it's appropriate for the process to go forward. There was a lot of toxicity, if you will, in this country as a result of the reaction to Donald Trump's election. I'd point out that lots of people thought that he was not the legitimate president, and maybe Susan could help me with some polling numbers, but I believe a substantial number of them continue to think that to this day, even though he's been in office for almost 4 years. So having the process go through, the legal process to be followed, challenges to be followed up on, that's the way we ought to do it. And then the election will take, the Electoral College will vote and we'll have a winner.
We only
There's
have
only
about
one
2 minutes
caveat
left. So
to
Sam, very quickly, make your point.
And that caveat is a smooth transition of government, especially with this COVID thing going. And we all know at this point in time that the Trump administration should go ahead and give the information to the Biden transition team so that we can all be safer in the future, faster.
Sam, I was Sam, I was on the Bush transition team in 2020. And I recall, because of the legal process, it was not until the middle of December when the outcome with the Supreme Court was determined. It's entirely possible to conduct a transition without all these other steps. As Susan already said, it's continuing to go forward. This is, you're just trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. The process will go on. There will be an inauguration on January 20th. Let's not get wrapped around the axle about this.
So I got to go.
I agree.
I only have 30 seconds left. Phil, who's the president of the United States until January 20th, 2021?
Donald J. Trump is before, he will be after. And one other thing, it's interesting, there was an article today, Anthony Fauci, everyone loves him, has not been contacted by the Joe Biden transition team. So it's kind of interesting to see how much they care about the supposed virus and the transition.
Well, unfortunately,
there are more than just Anthony Fauci as experts who have.
I'm
on the phone.
We're out of time. I'm sorry. We're going to have to go. We're going to have to break for parting shots. Stay tuned for parting shots. And welcome back. The fun thing with these Zoom calls is we can just keep yakking at each other during the break. It's so delightful. I wish we had outtakes. But now it's time for parting shots. Susan Hoffmann, what's your parting shot?
My parting shot is that I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. I want to express my sympathies to anyone who has been touched by COVID-19. I would urge you all to have small celebrations this year with your immediate household so that in 2021 Thanksgiving, everyone who you want at your table this year can attend next year.
Thank you, Susan. Phil Bell, your parting shot.
Well, I got to say, my parting shot goes out to Stephen A. Cohen, the new owner of the New York Mets. I've been boycotting baseball most of this year because of wokeness, but I'm excited for Stephen. Not only did he come in and fire the entire front office who needed it, but he's re-signed Marcus Stroman, and he's given all of us as Mets fans just a lot of excitement about what we can expect in Citi Field and beating down on those Washington Nationals. That includes you, Casey Aiken. You know what you're about to feel. Stephen Cohen's coming here too.
Phil, I just hope there's a baseball season in 2021.
A baseball season where we can watch the games.
That's correct. Sam Statland, your parting shot.
My parting shot is an alert to all Democrats. We really need to win the 2 Senate seats in Georgia. I encourage you to send money, make phone calls, send postcards, do anything you can so that we can take the Senate back. And I also, folks, want to go along with Susan Hoffmann in wishing you all a wonderful Thanksgiving. And I do really have regrets for anybody who's been deeply touched with the death of a COVID family member.
Thank you, Sam. Mark Uncapher, your parting shot.
Well, let me follow up and starting off with Sam and talking about the Georgia election. Let me look back over the last 40 years. For most of that time, 30 out of those 40 years, we've had divided government. That is, at least one house was, the presidency was held by a different party. And what that means in our democracy is that we need to work together and come up with compromise. And it's also instructive that in the few times that one party or the other has had a sort of trifecta government, only in 2004 was that party able to hold on for a second 4 years. American people want us as policymakers to work together and to find common solutions where there's agreement on both sides.
Thank you, Mark. It's very, very wise and very timely. I want to thank the panel for being here today. Great discussion. It was lively. It was also contentious at times, but it was very, very well in the spirit of good humor. And I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. And I'm wishing you all a happy Thanksgiving. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.